I'm not going to name the branch or what division I was working in. Being a whistleblower is already hard enough, and I don't need those bastards tearing down my door just yet. Well, to start, my division would work on objects and transmissions of the extraterrestrial kind. The fact that we've been hiding this from the public eye this easily for years up until the little virus outbreak is both hilarious and frightening. On one hand, while we were working on situations that were completely X-File related, the public could only theorize, but not fully confirm. That's what made our job completely easy because, let's be real, the general population could easily be distracted by whatever major event we decided to stage that day of the week. On the other hand, however, let's say something catastrophic is happening below the surface, something we can't control. Try explaining end-of-the-world class scenarios to the public, and chaos mixed with a bit of anarchy would ensue almost immediately. Now, with an insight into how stressful my job was, you could see why I decided to quit. With that being explained, you're probably wondering what sort of alien contact or intergalactic mumbo-jumbo could possibly scare me that much for me to pretty much expose my job and go on the run. Fine, I'll tell you. But this is your only warning to back out now. As they say, ignorance is bliss. Still up for it? Alright. But don't say I didn't warn you. Around December 2019, we received detection of an unidentified projectile entering the stratosphere and plummeting straight to the ground level at a speed of 700 miles per hour. The satellite cameras in the atmosphere captured an image of what seemed like a pod of some sort heading straight for White Sands National Park in New Mexico. I don't know why they always land their crap right in that state. But ever since Roswell, our team is stationed on standby for automatic retrieval to quickly clean up any tracks before the public catches wind of what happened. The last thing we needed was a little shit with a phone to make a discovery. Upon retrieval, we started noticing that the pod was sort of vibrating frantically and making a strange hum sound. It appeared to be a mechanical device, but the material it was made of seemed to be organic. In some ways, it was closely related to skin, as it felt soft and stretchy to an extent. I and 3 other scientists were assigned to study and examine the thing to find out what it does, or if it was any threat to humankind. I took a scalpel to slice some of the skin off, and on the initial cut, it started to sort of bleed. The liquid that came out was a bit shiny with an indigo hue. It turned out to be extremely corrosive, as the blade melted when it came into contact with the scalpel and with a piece of hafnium carbide we used to test the heat. Thank God we used a tungsten-infused table to study it. Otherwise, the examination would have been too dangerous to continue. To put it in layman's terms, it was hard enough to disintegrate through materials that are used to build our spaceships. That alone could be a problem for national security, especially if the ones that dropped this onto our planet were hostile. As we pulled apart some more of the skin with a laser scalpel, the pod started to emit strange sounds. It's almost as if the thing was crying out in pain with how high-pitched the noises were every time we put another incision into it. Stripping off the skin of the pod revealed some sort of incubator device. It looked very technologically advanced, which is saying something when you deal with some of the shit that we had to look at on a daily basis. Considering that it was probably built to sustain life, we contacted the higher-ups to let them know of possible unknown life on our soil. The testing was put on pause until we could find out what exactly dropped this on our planet, and why. As we reviewed the footage from the satellite cameras, we noticed a triangular spacecraft directly above White Sands from space. Just as it quickly appeared, it vanished within a blink of an eye. So now that we had our culprit for the pod, the only question that needed to be answered was this: what was the purpose of dumping this onto our soil? I didn't know we would get the answer that shortly. A few days later, we started to begin the second round of testing. We noticed that the front panel was made of some type of impenetrable glass barrier, and nothing was cutting through this thing. The laser scalpel was getting us nowhere. Normal power tools, chemical mixtures, and tiny plastic explosives were not cutting it whatsoever. We even tried reverse engineering the blood and mixed it with other highly corrosive substances we could find, and even that didn't work. Of course, when you run out of options, there's nothing a high-power blowtorch couldn't fix. As we put the flame on the glass, I noticed that it started to sort of bubble subtly. The other scientists and I started to cheer with excitement as we were starting to unravel this mystery in front of us. Just then, however, HQ caught another glimpse of the same ship from a few days ago. And what it dropped next in the White Sands wasn't some other cosmic phenomena we were used to. It was more of a warning. The ship dropped us off some sort of disc, but calling it a disc would be kind of an understatement. The thing was about as big as a shield, and it had a big glowing circular hub in the center. Of course, we took it back to the compound, thinking it was something needed for the incubator device to open properly. We go to examine it, and the fucking thing just starts screeching an ear-splitting noise from the hub. The sound was almost enough to make eardrums pop, if anything. Once we backed off, the screeching completely stopped. The thing then started to hum the same low tone as the pot when it first made contact with us. But that hum grew to a buzzer-like hum, and it made the center hub glow a yellowish-white light simultaneously with the hum. It would turn on and off repeatedly like a signal. It didn't take long to relate the noises to Morse code. Of course, we had to tell HQ that the unknown aliens were trying to make contact with us. The higher-ups relayed back that they wanted us to decode the messages ASAP, as we could be crossing a line with them. Having some intergalactic war wasn't really on their list of shit to deal with, especially after Roswell. A scientist named Dr. Howie told us about his experience with Morse code and decided to help get something out of the flashes. The disc started to sort of in a way boot up as Dr. Howie approached it. Hello. To what do we owe the occasion? The disc started to light up again and make the same high-pitched, buzzer-like sounds in a sequence. Dr. Howie studied the lights and sounds with extreme focus, not breaking his sight for even an inch. We all huddled closely behind him, but stayed back just a bit so we didn't have to hear that loud screech again. The sequence went like this. Then, there was a long silence. What did he say? I asked, feeling confused. They said hello, so it's safe to say they understand our language, Dr. Howie informed us. Then he turned back around and asked another question. What is your reason for contacting us? He asked in a concerned, but yet calm tone. It only took a minute to get another sequence, and it went like this. Then a short silence. There was a long silence, and then Dr. Howie turned around to us and calmly said, "They're saying, took one of us." I saw the look of worry in his eyes when he uttered that. I stepped forward, of course, starting to get agitated. "We didn't take any of you at all. It was dropped here by you," I retorted. "If anything, you should be careful where you drop your young." The room went dead quiet. I swallowed nervously, thinking about how I should have chosen my words better. We didn't know anything about these creatures. I mean, all the alien life that usually ends up at our labs is usually dead or too elusive. The ones we had contact with that were alive were pretty much no threat, and we treated them as friendlies. Even so, I could feel the air in the room begin to stiffen and get heavy. Just then, the disc started to glow and hum loudly. And then all of a sudden it stopped. This sequence then came out of the disc. The disc then started repeating this sequence faster and faster for about 5 minutes straight. I could see Dr. Howie starting to sweat, and I felt my stomach starting to sink. It stopped suddenly, and the room returned to the nerve-wracking silence. "Well, what did it say?" I said, shuddering slightly from the anxiety. Dr. Howie took his handkerchief from his coat pocket and wiped his forehead. I could see his hand tremble as he did it. It said, "Return," Dr. Howie said calmly as he looked straight at the disc. The disc almost instantaneously replied to us and repeated the same return sequence. It then produced a distorted white noise, and we were taken aback. We huddled around together, wondering what we should tell the higher-ups. We were basically fighting ghosts. No info and practically no ID on any description of the life form except for the fetus in the incubator and the mothership demanding it back. We were fucked in pretty much every sense of the word. The white noise from the disc started to crackle, and suddenly, this sequence played from it. The static and noises then died down almost entirely. Dr. Howie's eyes became wide, and he stood there as if he was in a trance. I looked over at him and grabbed his shoulder to snap him out of it. "Dr. Howie?" I tried to shake his shoulder, but he didn't take his eyes away from the disc. "Dr. Howie, what did he say?" He didn't budge. It was like he saw death himself, and he was staring him in the face. I got in front of him and started to shake him vigorously before giving him a light slap across his cheek. "Dr. Howie, what did he say?" I exclaimed, with the anxiety creeping into my voice. He slowly took his eyes off the disc and looked at me. His face had gone pale with fear. He then spoke in a shaky and trembling tone. "They said, we'll use lethal force." He then turned his gaze back onto the disc. His eyes looked hopeless. I told the other two to get HQ on the phone and tell them we had a major situation on our hands. But apparently, they had already been aware. They told us they found multiple pings on the coordinates where the first ship was located. They were looking at about 20 ships on the radar. The cameras on the satellites looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Just then, the disc emitted a loud crackle of static, and its final sequence started to play. Out of nowhere, Dr. Howie started to scramble quickly for the incubator. I grabbed his arm in an attempt to stop him, but he just shoved it off forcefully. "What? What did you decipher?" I started to panic, seeing him so frantic. "They just said we have 7 hours. We have to get to that drop-off point now." Dr. Howie then grabbed the disc and told me to tell HQ that we needed to move quickly. Could you imagine the terror beaming down in the entire room? We were sitting on a ticking time bomb with zero idea on the supposed enemy, and it all could have been avoided had we just left the pod alone. I could feel the sweat dripping down my forehead as we made the 3-hour drive from the outskirts of the Conscious Dam. Luckily, the park was pretty much closed off to the public in the middle of the night, so having a ship come down to pick up their baby from government daycare wouldn't be too much of a hassle. As we approached the drop-off point, the disc started to buzz and hum the closer we got. It was like playing Intergalactic hot and cold with the threat of annihilation hovering over your head. At the point, we see the usual men in black with their take-no-shit attitudes imprinted on their faces. One of them approaches Dr. Howie and me and proceeds to question us. "Doctors, do you have the items in question?" he asked in a deep tone. His voice sounded like he chain-smoked often. "Yes, they're just in the back seat," Dr. Howie replied quickly, still visibly shaken up. The man then had his 2 other peers collect the incubator and disc and put them right into the exact spot we retrieved them from. Dr. Howie then approached the disc and started to speak. "We have your child," Dr. Howie said as he stared at the disc. The disc started to glow and hum, and all of a sudden, the light grew brighter and brighter. It was almost like seeing a miniature sun. It was so bright that it almost hurt to look at. Dr. Howie immediately backed away from it, his head looking up to where the light was headed. And that's when I felt my jaw drop. I saw the same triangular ship from the cameras, but around it was a fleet of ships that looked pretty much identical. The main one started to hover a bit lower to the ground. I could see just how large it was. My stomach started to drop as I looked up at a skyscraper, and I could see the intricate design of the bottom. The bottom of the ship had these designs that looked like ancient runes, and the circuitry looked way beyond human understanding. It had these huge bulbous spheres, which I assumed had to act as a windshield to look out of. The middle of the ship started to open, and all I could hear was this loud horn. It almost resembled the sound of an AC-130 machine gun from up close. It was almost ear-splitting, but I didn't care as I saw the pod and disc instantly start to rise into the opening. I watched it rise, higher and higher, until it nearly vanished from my vision. And just as quickly as they arrived, the ships instantly vanished. I could feel my body shake with fear. Seeing a fleet of alien ships ready to destroy Earth if they didn't get their baby back really put things in perspective for you. I got escorted back to my apartment by the agents. And as soon as I closed the door, I immediately sunk to the floor. I decided to go AWOL the next morning. I cleared out all the files on my devices and sorted them into flash drives and started to pack light. I just couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't deal with the fact that we were meddling in shit we didn't understand at all. And knowing that I could die meddling with affairs like that and take the whole world with me made me sick to my stomach. I can't give away my location, but I'm safe for the time being. I know it's only a matter of time before I get terminated and my death gets ruled as a suicide. So, I took the time to handle my affairs. The only thing I could honestly tell you is that there's no coincidence that the government confirmed alien life existed after that day. We were too close for comfort. So, I can see weapons being developed in the scenario we do have an intergalactic war one day. They just want us to be more comfortable with it. Like sheep with a shepherd. Before I leave, I just wanted to provide you all with some thoughts. If you ever wanted to know if aliens were gunning for us in the void that we call the universe, they might just be closer to your doorstep than you would imagine.